there's a bit of a look at the bike, and the first water crossing for me. Call this a road, call it a pretty rough track. And we'll see where this goes. So I'm in playful type road for the normal run of the mill. Hi guys, how you going today? This is a pretty wild and rough little bush trek, and I'm out here today riding the 2020 KTM 390 adventure bike. So I'm parked here right in front of this fence here with the 1080 wild dog poison trap, but you know that they've possibly laid fox bait on this property, and if you got dogs here, don't let them run around here, or they might be only running around once. So I'm out here now, just checking out. It's a really nice. I've never been on this road, and once again lived around these areas for a long time, and all my life really, and never been out on this one. But okay, so I've put in now very close to 1,000 kilometres on this bike, and we'll just do a kilometre check now. And I'll light her up. So it's actually done 991 kilometres. And what I can tell you so far about this bike is I haven't really been what you classed as easy on it, and you know, I might have been a little bit easier on the dirt section, but in the sealed area I've really been giving this bike a bit of a workout, and the bike's been performing in all areas, like really well. You know, I can't come in to give you a story that I've had breakdowns or anything's broken down on the bike or it's let me down in any areas, because the bike's been absolutely faultless. And like I said, I've been giving it a workout on the dirt, oh not on the dirt but on the bitumen, and you know, I've hit the rev limiter on several occasions. So you know, when I get out along these back roads, especially on the seal stuff, I give it a workout. So, you know, it knows its way up into the higher revs, and like I said, it's been performing faultlessly. So overall I'd class it as one of the better bikes, or possibly one of the best bikes I've brought into the yard. So 1,000 kilometres down, absolutely nothing serious or anything I can pick that's gone wrong with the bike since the very first day I picked it up, I think roughly 2 weeks ago. We look at a couple of these ride shots I've got of the bike running through corners. I think you'll find that the handle's as good as any bike that I've been on lately over the last few years, and the loud handle, I think a lot of the bikes will surprise you how well it actually does handle. So it will come through the corners, I suppose, as fast as you're game enough to push it, and the tyres that it comes with as factory standard appear to be pretty good to me. And because of this light 170 kilos, it's a very light flickable bike, and it doesn't overpower you with the weight. And I notice a difference compared to other bikes what I've been riding at 200 kilo in weight, and this bike is more flickable, throw it around, and it doesn't sort of tire you out as much as a little 30 kilo heavier bike after you've been on it for 2 or 3 hours. Now I really don't know how accurate this is working on what the computer data says, but on trip 1, where I first started recording it, I've done 684 kilometres and I've averaged 3.2 litres per 100 kilometres. So I didn't actually set this right from the very beginning, but on that particular one, that's what I've averaged so far. And that would be working, you know, in Australia, if you're working on the old English Imperial 4.5 litres to a gallon, you know, that would work out that I must be getting up around 80 mile to the gallon. And in those early stages of that, I would have only been up around 6,000 revs. Now I've been running it up around 8,000 revs, and like I said, hitting the rev limit on quite a few occasions because it gets up there quite quick, because this bike is really, you know, fast off the mark. So you've got to be fast at changing those gears to go through it. And you know, it is performing really well in all areas. So far it appears really good on fuel, but the actual fuel gauge itself I wouldn't class as a very good one, because at around about 4.5 litres the gauge comes on and starts flashing, and you think you're out of gas, and there's about 4 litres or something left in the tank, and it could have been a little bit more accurate than what it is. If you're wondering how it actually rides, well, it's a fairly firm ride, but a comfortable firm ride. So if you come along and hit a bump, it sort of handles the bump pretty well. So if you ask from previous bikes I've been on, is it as soft as ride as a Himalayan or 500X? No, it's not that soft, but the fact is I can ride it for 300 kilometres and get off it, and you know, I'm not walking bow-legged. I can sort of get up and walk off it and say, oh well, that wasn't a bad ride. So from my point, it's a firm seat, but I still think it's a pretty good seat. As far as the headlights go, well, once again, haven't been out at night time to test what the bike's like at night time riding or around town at night, so can't help you on the side with the headlights, apart from I think they look good, and people seem to notice it as it comes along in the daylight section, so they must work all right that way. Now I suppose while we're at it, we might as well discuss this radiator. Well, on my first review on the bike at 300 kilometres, I hadn't actually heard the radiator turn on at all, and it wasn't until a few days back when I got into the forest and I'd been riding it in the scrub a bit, and that was a lot of mainly first gear and sometimes second gear work. That was the first time I'd heard it come on, and I experienced the radiator come on after that in the scrub area a few times. One thing about it compared to the 2018 KTM Duke I had, which had a single fan on the radiator, where this has got the big curved radiator with dual fans, I find this one is really a quiet fan when it comes on. Doesn't appear to come on quite as many times as what the 390 Duke I had, and it's a lot quieter, so it's not as annoying as you hear it come on and it's whistling away and you can tell it's on. This one comes on, it's nice and quiet, so it's not intrusive and it won't worry you. Now while we're at it, speaking of gear changing, like I said, I've put up virtually close to 1,000 kilometres, and to date I've never had a missed shift or a false neutral or anything like that in all the time I've been riding. The gearbox appears to be a little bit on the clunky side at times when you change them from first to second. It's a fairly high up in that gear change, but like I said, I've never missed a gear, never got halfway through a gear and a sort of half in, half out, which I've experienced with other bikes. And when you know, it is a pleasure to ride in that one, you never miss a gear. I've also mentioned this ride-by-wire throttle control on this bike. It really is a pleasure to use too. There's no snatchiness, no jerkiness, no anything like that. You can just power the bike on. Even if you give it a really good boot full of throttle, it doesn't come on with a really hard hit, which is some bikes can get you off guard. It's really safe controlled throttle, and you'd be very happy how you get on it and apply the throttle. It just takes off nice and easy, although it's a little bit different once you disconnect the traction control. Find these 4-pot bye-bye brakes, really good brakes to get out there if you have to use them, and they'll bring you down from speed quick, fast, positive. So there's nothing at all I can say bad about the brakes, because they work well, and I don't know what they'd be like after several attempts, and you know, if you get out there and use them constantly, maybe a bit different there, but the emergency brakes I've had to use at any time I've had to bring the bike down, I've had no trouble with it whatsoever. I only use them when I have to, and when I've had to use it, they've been good. If you wonder what my thought are on these alloy wheels, will they go to wire if they come out, or they're supposed to come out later on as an option? No, I don't think I'll spend that much money on getting wire wheels, because I'm not really a dirt rider. I'm not much of a rider at all on dirt, and I think I'd be just wasting my money, because I really like riding the seal stuff, or once again coming down here and going for a run along this sort of a dirt road, and that's good enough for me. And I don't need to, you know, push myself onto those dirt roads where I'm not at all that confident in that sort of thing, and I'd leave that to far better riders. And like I said, this is more my style of riding, this sort of track like this, and I can come along here and feel confident on that. Now, if this is your first look at this channel and this bike, like I said, I've had it 2 weeks. I've tried all different sorts of riding, from sealed road, high speed running on sealed road, well, I think it's fairly high speed running and cornering, and I've been out on the dirt. I found on the dirt I was having a bit of trouble with the bike bogging down under 4,000 revs, which caused a bit of a problem. The last time out on the dirt, I just connected the traction control by just pressing the button and logging out of traction control. I found then when I got into the dirt sections and the rough dirt sections, by doing that and giving the bike a bit more stick or more revs, I found that it handled it quite well. But I have been talking to the dealer lately to see if I can opt for a 14 tooth sprocket when it goes in for the service. And if that goes ahead and there's no drama getting that 14 tooth sprocket, next time I test this bike will be with that new sprocket. So overall, if you think I've been easy on the bike, well, for the first 1,000 kilometres, no I haven't. I've been really, you know, I've really given it a bit of a workout in all directions just to see if it's any good or not. So I could come up and give you a honest opinion at 1,000 kilometres what I really think of the bike. And what I think of the bike, it's a really good value put together bike, where I thought, you know, when I first thought KTM, made in India, this particular bike, I actually thought it'd fall to pieces and there'd be pieces breaking off it, or it wouldn't start and I'd have trouble. I'd be taking it back to the dealer for things to be done to it. But honestly, every time I've gone out there, turned it on, pressed the button, got out there and rode it, no trouble with it whatsoever. So it surprised me. It just goes back shortly, and I'll celebrate this with a 0 to 100 kilometre an hour burst on it. We'll give it a bit of a run in that line, and that'll sort of conclude this one. But you know, I haven't been out there and say, oh well, I'll look after this bike and I'll treat it well and see what happens. No, I've got it there and give it to it. I haven't even washed it. You can see now it's exactly how it is since I picked it up, and I thought, oh well, I'll just see how it goes. And it surprised me, and it's as good as, if it's as good or possibly one of the best bikes I've ever bought new and been trouble free. So that's the best thing I can say, and that's how I'd like to give me reviews on these bikes. I'd like a good honest one, and you can get back and say, well, you might own the bike, and you'll probably see reviews of mine where I've owned this stuff and just tell you straight they're no good at all. But honestly, this bike, you can just get on it. It's got one bolt at this stage, bogs down from 0 to 4,000 revs, but if you run it on dirt without traction on, you'll find in a bit of rev, you'll get out of that one no drama. You won't have much trouble with that on bitumen, because you can get out of that rev range and give it a workout, and you'll find the bike is a lot quicker than what you think. So, and then when I get this 14 tooth sprocket on, hopefully I'll be able to report back and tell you how it performs. While we're at it, back to that instrumentation, I think the key features I like are mainly two. One would be the large digital readout of the speedo. It's good to know how fast you're going for a start. That would be number one. And number two would be, I really like to see the gear selector when it comes up, what gear you're in, because sometimes even in 6th gear you'll still go and try to hit the gear selector again to see if you're in top gear or not, even though it shows you 6, and it's very handy to have that feature. Once again, thanks for calling in, taking a look at this 1,000 kilometre review on the bike, and I think that sums it all up. So I'll do a recap. For the money in Australia, $9,000. It's, I think, a good value bike where you can just go in, jump on the bike right away, and it appears to be trouble free. So if that's the sort of bike you're after, and you want something you can run along these dirt roads like here I am, out on the bitumen and have a really good bit of fun, and then probably go off road down here into the scrub, you could say, and do a little bit of that type of work, I think it's a good all-round package where it'll surprise you how well it'll do it. So if that's the sort of bike you're after, head to your KTM dealer and try one out, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how well they go. And once again, thanks for tuning in, taking a look.